Ustedes están escuchando SIBN, transmitido por Salette USA TV. Síguenos en Twitter @Salette USA TV o visítenos en www.41596radio.com.
Welcome to the Keynon Lake Show on SIBN Radio. Keynon Lake is the author of the book My Daddy Taught Me That, published by Welcome, a social worker and activist. You can like this show's fan page at www.facebook.com/The Keynon Lake Show on SIBN Radio. Feel free to post any comments, questions, or requests for his book on the fan page. Now let's go into the studio with your host, Mr. Keynon Lake, and co-host, Marcus Salette.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard. Welcome aboard to another edition of the Keynon Lake Show, live and on demand from Asheville, North Carolina. Keynon, how are you doing?
Good afternoon, Coach. I am doing wonderful today, Coach. The weather's nice, ready to get in on some topics and discuss some things, some issues, some things that I want to get out. So how are you, Coach? How have things been going with you?
Hey, everything is everything. It's all good. Whatever we're going through, we're coming through, and it's just a chance to grow personally. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. So, Coach, I guess we won't keep our guests in the audience waiting. I guess we'll jump right into it. So today, Coach, I want to talk about and discuss consequences and results of broken homes, broken families, and outcomes, and also things that we could do to kind of resolve that and give some information about trying to help fix that situation, Coach.
That's what's up. I like this topic. I was just watching a little bit of CNN International, and they were talking about the cities that have the most income growth possibilities and mobility, and Atlanta did not rank. Atlanta was 4% less than the national average among those 5 or 6 cities. And some of the reasons that they cited were a variety, but they all hinge around broken homes, such as single-parent families, too many of them, too many single-parent families, too many kids with only one parent. That parent has to work, of course, and some other reasons. So I like this topic today.
All right, Coach. So without further ado, Coach, let's talk about this. So what I'm doing, Coach, I'm gonna start off. And first, I think I've stated this earlier in all of my previous shows, that my belief is that, and this is from my core. This is what I believe. If we have strong families in our country, in our neighborhoods, in our communities, having a strong country, a strong family unit will negate a lot of the problems that we're facing. And I think that when we have broken homes, we have broken families. If the result in the end is exactly what we're facing. We're facing a lot of issues around the table, and I think that, now don't get me wrong, I think that we have some growing to do in a whole lot of other areas, but I think the foundation of all of our problems are stem from the home. So, with that being said, Coach, I'm going to give you some statistics here, Coach, and some of these, and this is actually out of my book. The book, My Daddy Taught Me That. These are statistics and facts that I have in my book. This is actually coming from Father's Facts, the 4th edition, and this information was put out in 2002. Now, mind everybody, my book was published in 2012, but I got all my information, and because what's happening is all of the recent information, all the recent facts, all the graphical studies and stuff like that are now being put out, but it's trickling out slowly because of the 2010 census. So all the new information will be coming out is going to be due to the 2010 census. We do find out that, and what we have learned is that when you're dealing with most of these statistics and stats, because the problem has not been fixed, it seems like it's getting worse, Coach. So let me talk to the audience about excuse me, some of these things. So the first stat I want to talk about: 24 million children in the United States live without their biological father. Okay, that's one. In 1970, fewer than 400,000 homes in the United States had children being raised by single fathers. By the year 2000, that number has risen to 2 million children, or 2 million homes. So, Coach, we see just in 30 years, it went from 400,000 in the United States, children being raised by single fathers, went from 400,000 to 2 million. Okay, about 40% of children who do not live with their biological father have not seen him during the past 12 months. And then it says more than half of them have never been in his home, and 26% of those fathers live in different states than their children. In 1960, only 9% of children in the United States lived with single parents. By 1995, that figure rose to 27%. I can go on and on, Coach. Let me give you a couple more stats, and we're gonna start discussing some of these things. In the year 2000, among white mothers, about 27% of all births were out of wedlock. Among Hispanic mothers, it was 43%. But check this out, Coach. Among African American black mothers, it was 70%. So I'm gonna read that stat one more time. In the year 2000, among white mothers, about 27% of all births were out of wedlock. Among Hispanic mothers, 43%, and among African American black mothers, 70%. Another stat in my book, it says unmarried parents account for 30% of children born in 2000. I'm going to give a couple more stats here, and I can do this all day because they're all throughout the book. But it says almost 18 million children in grades 1 through 12 do not live with their biological fathers. About 27% of white children do not live with their biological fathers, as opposed to 35% of Hispanic children, and then finally 66% of black children do not live with their biological fathers. So when we look at these numbers, we look at these stats, this is actually staggering throughout all races, throughout all genders, and this is a problem in our societies and in our neighborhoods and our communities. But we see that this problem is more prevalent in our community. And then we wonder why, things are going on. Now, once again, I'm attacking this situation from a whole, okay? I'm not singling out any race. I'm not singling out blacks, whites, Hispanics, or anything. But what I'm saying is that we have to do better, man. We got to get back on track because we see what's happening with our society, and I talk about this in every show. There's things going on in our society that are like I like to say, are done behind the curtain. So what that means is we don't see everything that our government is doing. We don't see everything that our legislature, our Congress is doing. We don't see everything that our mayor and our cities and our towns are doing. And it's like we don't know. What I can say is this. There's a hidden agenda in just about everything that you find today, okay? But the way to fix that is that, first of all, we got to be aware and conscious of ourselves and know what we're doing and know that if we're doing the right things and if we're making sure our families are protected, we're making sure we're doing better by our families, the rest of that stuff can come by the wayside. Coach, you can elaborate on some of this.
Well, Derek Drake, on his website, Engaging Life and Leadership, did an article on fatherless homes, reasons and impact. And, of course, by all means, he cited also what you cited about the single mother home, single parent home. Single mother is really the word they should be using instead of single parent because the mother is bearing the burden. But one of the things he says, a couple of things he says. One, he says that experts agree that the factor of gang expansion is a part of young boys' repertoire for reference to family, and that being because they're looking for acceptance and validation from other men or other older boys. But the second reason that he gives for why this may be happening is interesting. He says that the family unit is not looked upon as important anymore. And I quote, "We as a society have allowed the degradation of the family to get to a point where it's seen as a negative rather than a positive. It is looked upon as old-fashioned or too evangelical for today's world or today's culture. And the increase in casual sex, gay marriage, and similar symptoms are adding to the problem." So that's from Derek Drake, Engaging Life and Leadership. I kind of think that that may be a good place to start for me, because I don't want to kind of, put the cart before the horse. How we see families has evolved into a warped sense since we've had several indicators in place. Today, as I was watching CNN, they talked about the 1%, the top 1% in America has no relation to the bottom of the totem pole. No relation at all. But the middle class has a relationship with the poor, in essence, the growing poor. But the middle class is declining. So back to your point, and there are several factors here, and they sound kind of robotical, so to speak. They sound liturgical, lethargic. But one of the things they said in the CNN report is that when whites see blacks congregating into a certain neighborhood, they don't pay, they eventually move, and they don't pay as much taxes. So when you have lower taxes in a county, in a region, you have poor schools, you have poor community services, even down like with Detroit, poor civil services for that matter. So this whole, I think your statement earlier was the perfect statement for this storm. This whole situation has been hinged on a few things that's working outside of the African American and even a poor family's home. And what you've said in other shows that most people have not been paying attention. So as a consequence of not paying attention to the details, laws have been passed that, bring inequality and inability to move around, move up. Ordinances have been passed in certain counties and cities. School districts have declined. Wages have declined. So when you add all these factors together, they affect any family's attempt to rectify the problem. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean, Keynon, that we should hang our hats and quit. But it does suggest, as you've always said in every show, that someone out there listening to us has to encourage someone else after they've done it to step up and be responsible with what you have. The key to mobility is I take responsibility for me. Go ahead.
Because you hit a number of points there, and I didn't want to interrupt you because you were giving us some great information. But you're absolutely right. Now let's put it out there, and I want to get this in before we go to commercial. Let's just put it out there. There are barriers, and that's basically what you were saying. There are barriers that are hindering the family that are out of our control. I mean, like I said, we can't control our government. We can't control, what they're doing and certain things like that. But what we can control, and this is exactly what you said, is ourselves and our family. So let me just read this stat. Births to unmarried women constitute 36% of all births in 2004, reaching a record high of nearly 1.5 million births. Over half of the births to women in their early 20s and nearly 30% of births to women in ages 25 to 39 were to unmarried women. Mm-hmm. So this is. Let me just say this, okay? Like I said earlier, poverty is one of the biggest factors of where we are. I think me and you were talking, Coach, on the phone. This was off air, but we were talking on the phone last week, and I was telling you about that study that came out. They actually did a 25-year study for children who were born addicted to crack and dope. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And okay, with this study, Coach, what they did. Now I'm gonna tell the audience about this. With the study, what they did, it was a 25-year study, and I think it was done in either Chicago or Philadelphia. But what they did, they targeted mothers who were on crack and the crackhead babies and all that kind of stuff. So what the thought was prior to that was that crackhead babies or babies who are dependent on crack and dope will have issues later on in their life, or less than, or have all these mental health problems, or will be mentally challenged or deformed or whatever. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so the study, it started off with 240 participants. They ended up following 110 participants through 25 years, the mothers and the children. Mm-hmm. What they found. Now, also let me say this: the whole study was done on African American children in low-income housing projects. So every child they studied was an African-American child, and the children were of low income and poverty. What they found, Coach, was this. They found that no child who was crack dependent or born had any issues related to them being challenged, related to them being, less than or unequal to any other child. Mm-hmm. What every doctor who was participating in this study said was that the problem, more so than just focusing on children who are dependent on crack, the problem is poverty. They said they found just as many children who were having problems with being poor and poverty, and who were exposed to high risk situations, meaning that they were exposed to trauma, they were exposed to violence. That was the problem. And so, with that being said, not to get off on a tangent, we have barriers. We have barriers. We have those things that we have to overcome. But what I just read when it talked about unmarried women and how they have it, and it's like women. Okay, we know that as a consequence of what's happening with society today, us men are not stepping up. We're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. So it's up to you. It's up to you as women, as moms, as our new leaders, to start saying, you know what, I like this guy I'm with. I love this man. He's great. But I'm not going to subject myself to lay down and bear children and have a family with this man if he's not stepping up and marrying me. He's not stepping up and taking responsibility to say, you know what, you want to be with me, that's fine. If you want to be with me, man up. Be a man and make a home. Make this a home so where you can take care of us. Mm-hmm. Not just some, baby daddy. We got to get away from that. That's my baby daddy, and that's this. Those are how we can do things. That's how we can start by making a difference.
But that's just the point. You just at the end of your statement. That's just the point. The perception of family today, Keynon, is baby mama drama. The perception of family today is, I don't need him, and in some cases, I don't need her. These perceptions dig further holes for our culture and our family dynamics to evolve, to grow worse. And so what we may have to talk about a little bit coming back from the break is how do we change these perceptions? How do we get the listening public, particularly low income, because we all got some low income friends, because if you're in the middle class, studies show that we're more connected to low income and impoverished people than the top 1%. How do we engage them in a mind paradigm shift, a mindset conditioning shift, if you will? Maybe we could talk about that. Let's go to a small break, and then we'll be right back. Keynon, stand by.
We trust that you are enjoying the show. Stay right there. We'll be right back after these messages.
Responsible, accountable. Who taught you that? My daddy taught me that. That's right, the new book, all the way from Asheville, North Carolina, representing the legacy of Benny Lake, is Keynon Lake, the author of My Daddy Taught Me That, the book and the program for young men in Asheville, North Carolina, and throughout the region. Tune in to the program, the project, and the book at MyDaddyTaughtMeThat.com. For more information, email lake@MyDaddyTaughtMeThat.com or call 828-582-2261. That's 828-582-2261. MyDaddyTaughtMeThat.com.
Well, Keynon, thank you so much for joining us. Keynon, we were talking about perception, and and I like the topic. Let's go back to the topic: the consequences and the results of broken families. I think that the consequences are played down. So before we talk more about perceptions, Keynon, give us some consequences of broken family, both on a communal basis, on a private level, and even on a corporate level, because what most people don't understand is that it costs Americans more when there is no encouraging desire and drive from poor people. From
exactly.
You see, it may cost them more in the long run. And I think what you said in other shows is that they take that anticipated percentage of African Americans and others who are not going to rise, not going to change. They project that in profitability margins through other projects that we've talked about. So let's talk about consequences, Keynon.
So first of all, we can look at consequences of this. We can look at consequences as higher incarceration rates, which we see constantly. That's been decades of concern, but primarily in the African American community. You can see it in high school dropout rates. You can see it so you got the high school dropout rates, you got incarceration rates continually getting higher, which also on a national level, which is what you stated, Coach, raises taxes, which means more taxpayer dollars got to be spent to address situations and problems. But even more so, what happens is you start to see a void in the home, Coach, and it's like this. It's like, and I think what you made a very valid point earlier, Coach. It's like when you start to see a void and things start to go bad for so long, it becomes the norm. And so we start to get in a situation where, like you said, baby mama, it's like, well, that's my baby mama, that's my baby daddy. Well, that's the norm. And it's not a problem, and we don't look at it as a problem. Or, we start to say, well, I can do this by myself. But then this is what you also see. You start seeing families where the traditional family is no longer, but you start to see, you start to have the mixed family where you have women raising, you have a mom and a dad as two women raising children, not pointing any fingers, not trying to stir up any problems, but to me that is a problem. But anyway, you start to have two men raising children where you have the dad, two dads in the house, and one dad is the female, one dad. So I'm
confused by that anyway. I nothing against the gay community, but I want to know why can't we just call them two dads? Because there's no way that a dad can be a mom, even though he may have characteristics of a mother, and that throws a bone in the wrench. And then the husband and the wife thing, those words. I'm not challenging anyone's sexual identification. That could be a topic for later. But as far as kids are concerned, we are redefining what male terms mean. And how can you tell a child, boy child, Keynon, this is one of my questions I'll ask you. You don't have to answer this till later. But how can we tell a child to man up when the one that's raising him is being called a mother? I mean, that just introduces a whole bunch of problems for the psychological development of a child that folks ain't thought about. They just thinking about, getting their rights and getting their pleasure, but they're not thinking about the developmental challenges that it poses to a child's psychological development for the next culture, the next generation. But go ahead with your point.
Yeah, Coach, you're absolutely right, and that that's a whole nother can of worms and a whole nother show. But and I'm like you, I just don't understand primarily the main point you hit was the psychological development of our youth and our children, and male and female. Right. When you have these things in the home, and like I said, once again, I'm going to reiterate what you said, Coach. I'm not challenging anyone's sexuality. I'm not trying to point fingers or put the blame, but these are just problems, and they are becoming the norm. It's not unusual to see that type of situation. It's not unusual to see or to hear my baby mama or my baby daddy, and it's like, no, what happened to my daddy and my mama, and I live with my parents. It's like now. The unfamiliar, the unnormal thing to see is to see, your situation, Coach, to see, a wife and a husband who have children in the home and being taught. Now, let me get this straight. I'm not saying that this is, we don't have families out there who are doing great things, because we have families across the country who are doing marvelous jobs raising children, and we have men in the homes who are being great fathers and great husbands, as well as wives.
But to your point, that point that you making right there are a lot of gay families, and I hate to give them credit, but let's give credit where credit is due. The sad part and the spiritual trickery in this whole scenario is that a lot of gay couples are doing a lot better job as gay couples and parenting than heterosexual couples in parenting. I ain't afraid to say it. And the problem with that is it sends a signal out there in the atmosphere of culture that this is not only the new norm, but this is the way it was supposed to be. And I want to caution those who may be listening that just because they're doing it right does not negate the fact that heterosexual couples and parents should not be doing their job. I mean, it's just like you hear the little tag, what, you know, gay folks got better credit. And perhaps that, well, actually not perhaps, it's actually true. So does that mean that you shouldn't improve your credit? Because, you see what I'm saying? So I think your point is very valid, Keynon. The problem, I think, getting back to the question you asked earlier, I think it was the question you asked earlier, is why is it this way? Because there's a proverb that says, he that loveth pleasure shall be brought to poverty. And when we live lives of sensationalism, we've sexualized every part of our lives through music, through dance, through club, through casual sex, through booty calls. When our whole lives revolve around how we feel, then, Keynon, we're not going to get anything done. We're not going to get any responsibility done at all because I'm going through so much. So sex is my answer. Sex is my answer. Sexual songs is my answer. Sexual artists is my answer. And so our whole, particularly for the poor, the growing poor in America. Now, we know, as you say, we have other barriers. But I told my son just the other day, because I heard him say something that I didn't like. And I told him, I said, be careful what you listen to. Because irregardless of how much you like something, it can become a part of your character. And back to your point, who's telling the kids no? Who's telling the kids? I'm not talking about no with a yelling and screaming and then you go do something else and the kid turn around and do it anyway and disappear. But who's giving the children who need psychological guidance any guidance at all? Direction. Right.
And Coach, let me just say this. You know, two of my guests that I've had on my show, Tyson and Jazz, they both have said this. Tyson has said this several times, that, you know, every day we have to die to our flesh. Now, if we continue, like you just said it several times, Coach, our flesh will lead us to do lustful things. Our flesh will lead us to do, you know, immoral things. I mean, our flesh is weak. Our flesh will allow us or will instruct us to say, you know what, that girl looked good. I don't care nothing about what she has on her mind, but I'm more focused on what she has in her pants. The thing, you know, we have to die to our flesh every day, you know, and say, you know what, you know, I have to give this up, and I have to, you know, and it's hard. It's very difficult, but with Christ's help, you can do it. Now, the other thing is this, and Jazz said this, Coach, and this is more leaning, I know we're running out of time, but this is leaning to what part of the solution. Jazz and myself were talking, and this is Mr. Jazz Cathcart. He had said, you know, we were discussing the problems, and he made something very clear that's just been resonating with me. He said, Keynon, he said, what you're doing with your program, My Daddy Taught Me That, your men's development program, is the key. He said, because a lot of times folks run around and they have all these great ideas, they have all these, you know, these examples of ways to fix the problem. But until we start doing things in Christ's eyes, and until we start including Christ in what we do, the problem will never be fixed. And so you can have a wonderful idea, you can have, you know, but until we get back to the foundation, until we get back to how this thing was rooted, it's never. And what I mean by rooted is how Christ wants us to be. It's never going to be back on point. We'll never get it together.
Well, you know, like my daddy taught me that is a surrogate parent. You know, if you know anything about the Bible, it says that the Gentiles were sown in, as it were. They weren't the chosen, but they were sown into the fabric of the original intention of the Jewish promises. And so my daddy taught me that a program, men's program, boys program, has been hewn into your community there in Asheville, North Carolina, as a surrogate parent. And so what you're doing today and on every show is you're sounding the alarm as a parent, even though you yourself don't have any children, but these are your children. I mean, that goes back to the old days as well. You remember that back in the old days, everybody would say, boy, you better hold your head up. But boy, what you doing around there? Girl, I'm going to tell your mom. You know, so you have picked up the mantle and you have worn this mantle for several years as your father had done it and as your father taught you to do it. And what we're saying to those that are listening as a point of resolve today, take a moment and look around you. If you see out of place youth, out of place children, you may not always be able to say something, but at least observe enough so you can find out where to interject a compliment, because you gotta earn respect before you can give instruction. I need some help. You gotta earn respect before you give instruction. So you compliment the kids. Hey, those some great pants. Hey, did you get a chance to eat today? I saw you throw that bag of chips on a. There's a lot of ways to give instruction, but take active, resolve steps to look around your community and do something to encourage accountability and responsibility. Because, Keynon, that's what you're doing with My Daddy Taught Me That, right?
That's exactly what I'm trying to do, Coach. You're exactly right. And real quick, let me add on that real quick, Coach, before we depart and leave today. Folks, we got to be able to get educated and educate ourselves about what's happening around us and be informed about not only our decision-making and what we're teaching and what we're displaying, but also what we're receiving. And real quick, Coach, let me just say this. You mentioned, we talked about poverty on the show, but let me just say this, too. If we don't know we're poor, if we don't know that we're living in poverty, then we can't address it. You see what I'm saying? So, like, for example, folks, and I don't mind putting this out there. I'm a social worker for the Buncombe County Department of Social Services, and my salary per year is around $55,000 a year. Mm-hmm. Now, that's a decent salary for living from where I'm living at in Asheville, North Carolina. That's if I was living out west in California, New York, I'm poor. But actually, right now, I'm not even middle class. According to I looked at two statistics this week, Coach. And real quick, I'm getting off and I'm wrapping this up. The reason I'm even addressing this is because several of my kids, and when I say several, I'm talking about 10 plus. They don't even think that they're poor. They don't even know that they're poor, but they're living off of. They get government assistance. They get food stamps. They get Medicaid. Mm-hmm. But when you ask these kids, are they poor? No, I'm not poor. So this is the thing. The studies that I looked at this week. One study said if you make between $50,000 to $150,000 a year, that's slightly above average, like right above the poor mark. If you make $150,000 to $500,000, that's middle class. $500,000 up is rich. Mm-hmm. The other statistic that I looked at said if you make $60,000 a year or below, then you're poor. Mm-hmm. Okay, so our family, you have to know. Like, for example, myself, okay, folks, the Keynon Lake that you're listening to now, in most families, I'm considered to be poor. I'm poor. I need some help. So if anybody want to give some money, please.
Okay.
But you have to be aware of what you are, and if you're not aware of these things, and the reason I even mentioned finances and poverty, because it's like we can't fix problems, we can't address and tackle situations if you're not aware.
Well, but that's back again, Keynon, and we're just gonna go a few extra minutes. But look, back again is this. We have changed, the poor have changed the perception for themselves. Someone once said that you can fool some people some of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all of the time. And we have been tricked by the things that we have decided to be culturally popular. For instance, the trick with fashion has resulted us in a further decline of young people in this country getting hired. I don't care what nobody says. Yep. You can't dress right, and you all ebonic up, as they say. How in the world am I? Like, I'm getting ready to hire somebody, or they're coming on as an intern, and I just found out from the mother, and they live in the projects. But the mother has the child in every program. The girl is going to a college for her high school, knocking out 4 years in 2 years. And I asked the mother, I said, I might even have invited her to be on the show. I said, how do you do it? She says, I believe in my child. I believe that when she wants to do something, I will support her and make it happen. I said, well, what about the money? She says, I barter, I exchange services. Now, the parent probably would admit she hasn't done everything right. But I'm telling you, I was absolutely shocked when she told, and this is a very articulate person. You would think this person got a master's degree living in Buckhead somewhere. But Keynon, it can be done. It can be done. But we have to make up our minds. We have to decide. People in my bracket, we can't give up, because there's a lot of people out there getting divorced, getting separated, and guess what? Letting their kids at 12, 13, 14, 8, 9, 10 fall through the cracks. So, Keynon, back to what you always said. Right. We got to be responsible.
Coach. You're right. And, real quick, Coach, but see, this is the thing, and you're right. It can be done. But as a parent, as a care provider, as an elder, you have to be able to, and this is the thing, Coach, and the reason I even mentioned, like I said, the finances of this, and this whole thing came about where, a young kid who was less fortunate than one of them in my program, the other kids were teasing them, and so I got a couple of the kids individually and said, look, don't tease this kid, don't pick with this kid, he's not able to get and have what you guys have. Mm-hmm. So I was actually talking to the kids, and I said, while I'm talking, I said, the kid, and I actually mentioned, I said, the kid is kind of poor. So so they said, well, that's his fault. This is what one of the kids said. They said, that's his fault that his mama and them ain't got no money and he's poor. So it pissed me off, right? So Coach, I asked the kid, I said, well, knowing this kid's whole background, I said, well, what do you consider yourself? Mm-hmm. He said, well, this is what I'll say. He said, I'm not rich. He said, but I'm far from poor. He said, my mama worked, she got a job, and he said, so we're not rich, but we ain't poor. He said, I got 5 pairs of Jordans. He said, I got 5 pairs of Jordans. He said, I got a PlayStation, I got a cell phone. And I looked at this kid like, are you serious? Because this is the thing, because like I said, this kid is on financial assistance. He receives food stamps. The family receives food stamps. Mm-hmm. The family is on Medicaid. So it's like, I'm looking at this kid and I'm like, are you serious? Like, you're poor. Like, this, but this is the way society has us, Coach. And it's like, we don't even understand that. And it's not just so much the children. The adults think the same way.
Right. If they driving a Lexus, I used to ask Claire. I said, Claire, I said that Lexus got bald tires. What's going on? Oh, she said they do it all the time. They'll come and get a high class car
and can't afford to keep the maintain it.
Exactly.
Can't afford to maintain it.
Exactly, Keynon. And it used to baffle me, a Mercedes with bald tires.
Yes, it's like, you want to live ghetto fabulous and live this fabulous life without thinking about the most important things. And folks, listen, I'm not trying to dump on anybody, because like I said, I have the same struggles. I go through this. But what I want us to do is be informed, first and foremost, to say, you know what, if I get this, like for example, this has been the new thing, Coach. I'm not sure, but like when you get your income taxes back, okay? Mm-hmm. Instead of getting your income taxes back and going to spend, you're spending your $5,000 on that Lexus or that, it's like, why not put that to the side and start investing in a home first? Get your house first. You can't. How are you going to have a Mercedes or a Lexus or whatever you want, and you parking it and living in the hood? It's like I'm living in the projects and I'm gonna have a nice car, or I'm gonna have the best furniture, a 60-inch flat screen, and it's like, no, like I'm gonna get the necessities first. I'm gonna get a house first. I'm gonna do this first, or I'm gonna plan this. Then
the valuation.
Being able to be conscious.
The valuation. Back to the topic. The valuation of family has declined, and what we're saying to our listening audience, because a lot of us people that listen to the audience, they may be struggling, but they know someone else who doesn't value family, and then there are others who are on the borderline. They're answering a lot of booty calls in the back in the booth somewhere while their kids is asleep, and all these little things, even though they're grown, they catch up with you because kids have perception. Kids pick up vibrations. Kids pick up innuendos. Kids have like a third eye, so to speak, as they develop because of the curiosity and the other things that are. I don't want to get into everything, but the point of the matter is, our children need us to understand what the consequences and the results of a broken family will bring, but they're not getting it because, as you said, the adults are not getting it. And for those that may be listening to us, that may be struggling, listen, there are 5 things that you can do before we go to break. There are 5 things that you can do that will help you with your mobility. Number 1, put a number, if you can, to the valuation of every experience. Will it cost you in the long run, or will it profit you in the long run? If it's going to cost you, say no. If it's going to profit you, say yes. Second thing we could do is we could read that book, My Daddy Taught Me That, because if you didn't grow up with a father, you still going to need some fatherhood perspectives. You can't live in this world with only motherhood perspectives or only fatherhood perspectives. They both go hand in hand. Number 3, reach out to someone for help. If you are struggling with your young boy, your young lady, reach out at your local church, your local YMCA, your local Navy Sea Cadet program, your local Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts. What efforts are you making to reach out? Number 4, make sure that your conduct represents your instructions. You can't say, do as I say and not as I do. Children are just imitators. By all means, they're imitators. And then number 5, the last thing is, whatever you do, take those kids into your arms, or your sister's kids, or baby and them kids. Hug them, feed them, give away some clothes, secondhand clothes to them. You know what I'm saying? Pass them Jordans on down, because they're going to get small. And let's recreate the community we lost decades ago. Keynon, let's go to a break. We'll come back and talk a little bit more, okay?
All right.
We interrupt this program to simply say thank you for your listenership here on SIBN Radio. We do not take what you're giving to us for granted. By all means, we invite you to be a part of our family in a deeper way. You can visit our websites, www.sibntelevision.com. You'll see a community page at the top there, and you can join free of charge with your email and share your thoughts, pictures, and so much more right there on the site. And for those of you that would like to listen more regularly to our block programming, you can visit www.sibnradio-by-SaletteUSATV.com. We're now looking for interns for the SIBN networks, and there is no shortage of work that needs to be done. Simply email us your bio or resume to globalcoverage@SaletteUSATV.info. New programming is always a consideration here at the networks, and we invite you to share your ideas, concepts, or vision. As we move forward with a global multimedia platform, we expect great things. We now want to return you to your regularly scheduled program. And again, from our hearts to yours, thank you.
Well, Keynon, man, we're back, and we got about 2 minutes. But listen, Keynon, your burden for families in your professional work and in your private work, because most people don't know that you got a life too. You don't have to do what you're doing. My daddy taught me that, but you choose to do it for the legacy that was left to you and the legacy that you want to leave. But listen, it's not in vain. We want those that are listening. We got to Trayvon Martin's situation. I believe, a lot of people don't talk about this. I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna get in trouble, but I'm gonna say this. I want to know why did Trayvon Martin's father have at least 3 girlfriends? I'm not going to, I'm just saying, Keynon. He was going to his dad's girlfriend house, but that, from my understanding, that was a previous girlfriend. And he had another current girlfriend. I need some help. See, African Americans don't want to put the spotlight on themselves. Now, we can march all day long, but I'm just asking the question.
Coach, and this, like you said, I'm going to read this last thing, okay? It says, let me see if I can find it here. 75%. But you're right, Coach. To talk about what you're talking about, while I'm trying to find this last stat to kind of talk about, to kind of wrap up this whole discussion. You're right. Why? And it goes back to what we talked about. You have to be able to show your children through actions, and it's like, it's crazy, but this is it. It says girls whose mothers were teenagers at the time of their birth are over 80% more likely to become teenage mothers as well.
Mm-hmm.
So folks, what Coach is trying to tell you, what I've been trying to tell you is this too, okay? as families, once again, it's not easy. As single parents, it's not easy. But we have to live and walk the walk instead of just talking the talk. We have to live the standard. We have to live the moral standards and let our youth, let our families, let our children, let them know, like, look, you know, like you said, Coach, this man had 3 girlfriends. So what that informs and tells his children, or his child, Trayvon, who's no longer here, rest in peace. So what that image tells him is this: my dad's a pimp, my dad's a player, so it's cool to get out here and have 3 and 4 girlfriends. It's cool to, you know, now, what we all tell our kids as young men is this, you know, have a girlfriend, you know, have several girlfriends before you pick the one that you're going to marry. You know, that's, but we don't tell our kids, go ahead and have, you know, go ahead and get, you know, 5 and 6 girlfriends and sleep with all of them. And that's not the proper instruction. You tell your son, you tell your children, look, you meet men and women of opposite sex, and, you know, you can have friends and stuff like that, but be smart about it. Don't be out here giving yourself away, because, first of all, that takes away morally. Also, you have integrity in yourself. If you have a little girlfriend, then you treat that girlfriend respectfully. You don't be messing around with 4 or 5 different girls. That ain't cool.
Well, man, if that's the case, Keynon,
that ain't how it go.
Keynon, if that's the case, me and you are antiques sitting on a shelf somewhere, because the word today now is, man, these guys, the word today from the young guys is they go out, man, and they just hit. And I'm talking about without protection and whole 9. And then they are brag on Facebook and on Twitter and on Instagram and social media. Man, I got 4 baby mamas. It's like a competition who can have the most baby mamas. And listen, I can't blame the young girls for this only. It's the guys too. But young ladies, you gotta know that it's gonna cost you in the long run. Every decision I make costs me or profits me. And I got my issues, Keynon got his issues, and we know what we're talking about. We know what a costly mistake is. It may be pleasurable today, then you wake up in hell tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? And then,
you're right, Coach. You're right. Go ahead.
And then your energy to love your little young man or your little girl, it starts to dwindle because the responsibility starts kicking in. Now you're mad at yourself. You're mad at him, your baby daddy. You ain't getting no child support. God help us. I'm gonna stop because I don't want to go in on it. But you know what I'm saying. We're
gonna wrap this up. I guess we got about 50 minutes. But listen, Coach, this is the last thing I'm gonna say. And you're absolutely right. Women, we're not. I even said this earlier. Like, women, you know, start making these men marry you. Well, you know, as I think about that, the way God intended it, it's not your call. The man has to be a man to say, you know what, I'm gonna marry this woman. And men, we got to get ourselves together. We got to say, you know what, and that's the thing, as men, we are stronger vessels. That's what Christ teaches us. We're stronger vessels. Women are weaker vessels. So we got to be able to say, as a stronger vessel, I need to be able to protect, nurture, and you know, bring this woman up. So, and it's not like I rule with an iron fist, or, you know, you're some Neanderthal and you're dragging the girl by the hair. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about being a stronger vessel and doing what's right in the eyes of Christ. Now, back to what you said, Coach, and to piggyback on what you said before we depart the show, is this. Women, with that said, there's men being the stronger vessel and it's not on you. What is on you in today's society is this. If you're not smart and you're not protecting yourself, then you're going to have those problems that Coach was just talking about. Because what we find, what's evident, is that we have more single parents today than ever in any time in history, and the single parents primarily are women. So you're going to be the one bearing the burden, like Coach said, being mad and pissed off and having to raise a child by yourself. And finally, with all that being said, is this, Coach, you know, as the men, you know, it's like, yeah, you're right, we want to hit everything and do this in a third. But that's why we have the broken homes we have now, and then we have the AIDS that we have now, and you know, we have all these epidemics going on now because we're not following the proper instruction that's intended for us to follow. So the consequence, with everything that you do in this world, there's consequences. So from us not being men, for us not providing families, and the family, the home structure being broken, what we have now is we have the single family out of control. We have AIDS running around. We have all these single parents doing this.
And meanwhile, don't forget now, the white folks not all, but I'm just saying the white establishment knows these statistics.
Oh, yeah.
And they plan accordingly to the predictable patterns in poor communities. And so you can't get mad when water dripping down from the ceiling at your school, and you wonder why your child ain't got no school books, and you wonder why the class is overcrowded. You can't complain, because this situation that Keynon has been talking about for the last, I don't know how many months, is growing worse. This is one of the first years that teenage unemployment has been the highest. And it's not only, it's not only among poor teenagers. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the dynamic and the priorities as the rich get richer has changed. There used to be a culture of JFKs where people wanted to help cultures and regions of kids and families, but that's dying, folks.
And cuz let me just say this too. You hit another nail on the head. This is the thing too. And this is, you mentioned Trayvon. I think I said this in our Zimmerman show, Coach. Is this okay? And I'll reiterate it. I don't believe that Zimmerman was set out to just kill a black kid. I think that, like I said, Zimmerman, more than anything, was trying to kill the image that the black man portrays, that we now portray. The thug image that I'm walking around, I'm a gangster, I'm this. I think that's the image that Zimmerman. And this is the thing. And I tell my kids this all the time. If you're not willing to help yourself, and do things for yourself, no one else is going to take the sacrifice of their time to help you. So the same thing is detriment to our communities. Right now, the African American race is like foolery. It's like we're the clowns. They walk around with it. You look at them. Look at how they act. Look at this. Now, I'm not saying that you don't express yourself. We are an amazing people. Right. And I don't want nobody to say I'm self-hating my people. None of that. I love being black. I love my race. I love everything about my color. And I think that the thing that I don't like is how we subject ourselves to act out this foolery or act out the stereotypes that are played upon us or put on us. Well, we are so much better. And it's like when you see the pants sagging or you see the leaders walking around acting like idiots, it's like that's what bothers me. Like, no, that's not us.
Right.
We're better than that. Well, we have a stain and have strived to great heights as a people, only to be brought down by foolishness. And that, that's what I got to say.
Part of the problem, though, is when blacks and poor whites and Hispanics and Latinos are doing good, the media does not shine that light. Now, you got to go to specialty channels and all of that.
Exactly.
So I think, to give an equalizer to those that may be listening, there has to be a balance of response. And what I mean by that is that if you act a fool, now, Keynon, I've been hearing through the grapevine, you correct me if I'm wrong, we always talking about the kids and teens, but I heard that it was adults that was doing this crap, that we talking about baby mama dramas and 3 and 4 and playing the field and all that. Not no kid. I heard that adults are doing this. So what I'm saying is we know that we are a great people. We know this because look at our history. But since we don't have enough digital data to show our greatness, we don't want to add to the problem that they're already putting a magnifying glass on the predictable patterns that we keep falling into. We as a people have to rise up and say we're going to show our nation something different. Each one show one something different. And I think that falls on all of us. That's one of the reasons why we're doing this show. Is because we want people to know, listen, I have my issues. Keynon, you have your issues. But one thing you ain't going to catch me doing, as much as it may pain me, I'm not going to leave my son out in the cold to raise himself while I'm hustling a job in the name of prosperity and then come back, knock him upside the head, yell, and scream because I wasn't around, and that's my shortcut to get him in line, and then get mad when the police do it to him because I did it to him, get mad when a teacher do it to him because I did it to him. Every seed reproduces after its own kind. So if I love mine, everybody might not love my kid after I love mine, but somebody gonna love him because I sowed this first good seed. And Keynon, that's what you're doing with this show. Your dad sowed a seed, and that seed to this very day is still coming up good. And we're telling everybody under our voice, if you sow a seed of good, it's hard to parent. Ain't make no mistake about it. It's hard to deal with school systems. Make no mistake about it. It's hard to make it on minimum wage. Make no mistake about it. It's hard to, when you got a DUI, you ain't got no license, now you got to get a different job. I'm gonna need some help. Let's call it for what it really is. You know what I'm saying? It's hard. It's hard to not want to smoke a joint to escape the pains in your neighborhood. And you don't want nobody, you think you got everybody thinking you smoking weed because you cool. But no, you smoking joint because you hurting. And it's hard to come off that weed when you know you need to go get a job, go finish school, so forth and so on. So what we're saying is we know it's hard, but we can't keep fueling this fire. This is terrorists. We giving the white establishment a bomb, saying blow us up, build prisons for us, bring our schools down. You done got me riled up now, Keynon. It's your fault.
And Coach, and see, that's the thing. It's like, Coach, because of what I do, Coach, because of what I'm able to see in the system, I'm able to see things that a lot of people are not. You know, just point blank. I'm able to see how systems work. I'm actually in a position where I'm able to see what's being piped down throughout the states and throughout. And it's like if we don't wake up, folks, and the reason that I'm so hard, I guess if you want to call me hard, is because first and foremost, once again, I love everybody. But I know what we're capable of, and I know what we have in us. And the coach, you said it right. You know, it's hard. Like giving myself an example. It's hard funding a program without any help. Now, it's hard for 1 year. I funded. My daddy taught me that men's program out of pocket. No assistance from anybody, so it's hard, but I know that there's great things that can be done with that. And it's hard doing day-to-day things. It's hard being able to live in a system or a place where you're constantly beat down and stuff. I understand the pain and what Coach was saying, but I also know that if it was easy, if it was easy, everybody do it. And it's like, so sometimes that pain, that struggle makes you stronger. But then, most importantly, Coach, and this is something that, it's like, out of that pain, out of that struggle, so much great can come. And then once you overcome, you'll be able to sit back and say, you know what, now I can uplift and help up the next person. I have the wherewithal, I have the wherewithal in me to say, you know what, I can give back now. I can lift up that next person to great heights. And if we do that, then these communities, our families, our neighborhoods, our states, our nation as a whole will be something strong that we can be proud of. Trust me, everybody in this world, in the way our systems and stuff, people don't understand that it's profit to be gained. And when it comes to money, that's all people care about. They don't care nothing about homes. They don't care nothing about this. But when you're the minority and when you're the poor, there's profit to be gained. Just like they talk about how when you were slaves, the country was built on the backs of those. Well, it's the same thing now. It's just different. It's the same thing now. It's just different.
Slavery by a different name.
Yeah. And you have to understand that because you're the minority, because you're the poor, people will use you to build up on your backs and your sweat and your blood, your hurt, your pain. They will use that to build up and do other things so they could be, and I'm not speaking of a specific race. I'm just talking about in general, being wise, being educated to your, how should I put it, Coach? To your surroundings, to your area, to what you're doing, so you'll be informed enough to make the decisions that you need to be a better person.
That's going to have to be the last word. Keynon, man, tell them the website real quick. www what?
MyDaddyToldMeThat.com.
All right, that's man. Right. That's it for the day. Keynon, stand by.
I enjoyed it, Coach.
Yes, sir. The Twitter is
the KL Show. Facebook, Keynon Lake, and also the Keynon Lake Show on SIBN Radio.
All right,
we'll see you next time.
Yes, sir. And y'all go and let us know your thoughts right there on Twitter. We'll see you next time. Stand by.
Thank you for joining us today for the Keynon Lake Show. We know you will be empowered as you consider the content shared by Mr. Keynon Lake, co-host Marcus Salette, and our guests. For more information about Mr. Keynon Lake, please visit www.mydaddytaughtmethat, and feel free to email us at lake@mydaddytaughtmethat.com. Books can be ordered from Mr. Lake by calling 828-582-2261. Until next time, you've been listening to the Keynon Lake Show on SIBN Radio.